If your doctor says everything looks normal, but you still feel off, this is what they're missing. Because normal doesn't always mean optimal. Today, I'm gonna show you the exact functional lab tests that high performers, longevity doctors, myself, and athletes are using to uncover essentially what traditional blood work cannot cover. So essentially the goal is for you to stop guessing and start thriving. So if you don't measure the proper metrics, you're never gonna get it right. You're never gonna get your health right. You'll never fix the challenges that you're dealing with. So I wanna get into why conventional testing misses the mark and why functional testing is much better. Conventional tests, they just catch disease. They don't catch dysfunction. So when you see quote unquote normal ranges, it represents population averages, not peak performance. And so that's a big problem. And symptoms often appear years before labs go out of range. So here's the biggest challenge is that conventional labs were designed to detect disease, not early dysfunction, which is really what you want to look at. You're like waiting for your car engine to seize before checking the oil. You want to look at the oil lights that come on. Most reference ranges, they come from population averages. So when you're told your results are normal, it just means that you're essentially not sick yet. The functional medicine paradigm, it flips that. So what we do is we measure how your symptoms are performing or system is performing before disease actually develops. And what research shows in a 2001 British medical journal open review, they found that 70% of patients with metabolic disorders had quote unquote normal standard labs in the years before the diagnosis. That's a gap function, that's essentially the gap that functional lab testing will essentially fill. And it's not just for metabolic syndrome. It's for heart disease, it's for cancer, it's for a number of other things. So you can't optimize your health using a test designed just to tell if you're dying, okay? Functional versus conventional ranges are very different, okay? So I'm gonna get into how the functional range gives us an optimal zone, where lab ranges give more of a larger scale, a zone that will not really see dysfunction before it starts. So early shifts, they show up in energy, in inflammation, and hormone dysregulation, as well as digestion. So the cool thing is that functional labs and functional lab data, they help with prevention, and they also help to personalize approach to health. So conventional medicine uses a wide range to catch disease. Functional medicine, again, what we do is we focus on the precise ranges to catch imbalances. For example, if you look at a lab that say is a thyroid lab that says quote unquote it's normal, which is anywhere from between 0.5 and 4.5, but research shows that energy and metabolism are optimal when TSH is between 1 and 2, then you want to look at that range between 1 and 2. The same is true for glucose. The same is true for ferritin. The same is true for vitamin D. There's functional ranges that reveal the trajectory of your health, not just when it's collapsing. So functional testing doesn't just diagnose disease, it predicts your destiny, right? It predicts where you're going. I want to get into the 5 top functional tests that reveal what blood work can't. And so there's a lot of different tests out there, but one of my favorites is the Dutch test. This is short for dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. It maps out cortisol rhythms, estrogen metabolism, androgens. It matters because it shows you how your hormones are functioning, not just how much hormones you have at a certain level, it's how they are actually functioning. It identifies if your cortisol curve is flat, meaning whether you're chronically stressed out or you're just completely burned out. It reveals if estrogen is being detoxified safely or it's recirculating, which is a major issue for both men and women, because in men, it can cause essentially issues with their estrogen dominance, and in women it does the exact same thing which then drives a number of different issues, anywhere from heart disease to cancer, etc. In Frontiers in Endocrinology in 2020, research confirms that disrupted cortisol patterns predict fatigue and inflammation. So even when serum cortisol is quote unquote normal, this is something that we can actually look at. So your hormones, they don't just balance, they don't just need balance, they essentially need rhythm. You need to look at them a little bit differently. The second test is a stool analysis. So this is a gut zoomer. Another one is GI map, but I like gut zoomer. This is your microbiome blueprint. Your gut is essentially ground zero for immunity, for inflammation, as well as longevity, if you care about longevity. And modern stool tests like Vibrant America's Vibrant Wellness, gut zoomer that uses advanced DNA and PCR testing to analyze hundreds of microbes, bacteria, parasites, fungi, to get key markers like secretory IgA, calprolactin, zonulin, a lot of stuff that you don't even get in conventional testing. And here's the reality is that your microbiome, it drives nutrient absorption. It drives neurotransmitter production, and it even drives immune signaling. And this is how important it is. A Nature review in gastroenterology and hepatology in 2022 showed that the gut dysbiosis accelerates systemic inflammation and biological aging, independent of diet as well as genetics. So this test essentially exposes hidden infections, poor diversity, or leaky gut, and it factors in those standard stool cultures that are completely missed. So here's the thing, if your gut's inflamed, every system from your brain all the way to your mitochondria, it ends up feeling it, okay? So the third test that I like is the organic acids test. This is what we call the OAT test. This is your cellular energy snapshot. The organic acids test is one of the most comprehensive tools for detecting hidden imbalances in energy, metabolism, detoxification, and neurotransmitters. It measures organic acid metabolites in your urine, like pyruvate and lactate and succinate, and it shows exactly where your mitochondria is stalling. A cell metabolism study in 2021 found that mitochondrial efficiency declines by 8% per decade, a process that worsens and accelerates with oxidative stress and nutrient deficiencies. So the OAT connects the dots. It shows you what the low energy is, your mood swings, your brain fog, what it can be connected to, all traced back to impaired cellular metabolism. So fatigue doesn't just start in your schedule. It doesn't start because of, what's going on in your day. It starts ultimately in your cells, and this OAT test can help you understand what's going on in a cellular level. The test number 4 that I like is the total toxic burden test. This is again from Vibrant Wellness. This is a missing link in fatigue and inflammation. Most people have no idea how many toxins they're carrying. The total toxic burden test screens for heavy metals, mycotoxins from mold in your environment, environmental chemicals, plastics, pesticides, and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. These compounds accumulate and bioaccumulate in organs, in your brain tissue, in your fat tissue, your adipocytes, and your mitochondria, silently driving inflammation and exhaustion. In 2021, Geroscience Exposome study found that people with the highest environmental toxic load had accelerated biological aging and greater mitochondrial DNA damage. This test pinpoints your personal toxic fingerprint so that you can essentially detoxify strategically instead of guessing with random cleanses. So you can't just detox what you don't detect. In order to customize a detox system, you have to look at what's going on inside your body through these tests. The other one, number 5, that I love is the micronutrient deficiencies panel. This is cellular nutrition status, right? Micronutrient panels, they result and they show you what's going on inside the cells, not just in your bloodstream. And they look at typically red blood cells, white blood cells. White blood cells stay in your body for a long time, and so you can look at what has been going on in your body for the last several months versus just a snapshot in time like a red blood cell would show you. So you can kind of see what the long-term deficiencies are and what the short-term deficiencies are with some of the red blood cells. But you want to look at serum nutrients as well, and what is actually happening real time. So these tests assess intracellular levels of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, essentially all the things that are essential for mitochondrial health, for beautification, for hair optimization, and just disease prevention. And all of these things are epigenetically impacting your DNA and the way that your DNA is expressed. So a study in Nutrients 2020 confirmed that intracellular nutrient deficiencies cause mitochondrial dysfunction, cause fatigue. We know that it's linked to heart disease, it's linked to cancer, it's linked to Alzheimer's disease, etc. So you don't have to live your life without testing what is actually happening. You can actually look at what's happening inside of your body through this micronutrient test. All right, so you get these tests done, or you get one or two of the tests done. If you can't afford all of them, just go with one or two of them. Go with as many as you can afford. But how do you actually interpret these results? Because it's one thing to get the test done. What you really need to do is have somebody interpret them powerfully. So tests are only as powerful as the action it inspires. And once we identify the root imbalances, say it's low magnesium or sluggish estrogen detoxification pathways or microbial overgrowth and microbiome dysbiosis, we're going to design targeted protocols. A functional doctor or practitioner should give you the right nutrients, the right diet, the right adaptogens, the right detoxification agents to restore balance, right? Detoxification strategies will be deployed to get rid of any mold or heavy metals. Gut repair plans will help you rebalance the microbiome, the hormone rhythm that will essentially get back into play and get you back sleeping well and getting back into a normal circadian rhythm. But we will give you some really good strategies on how you can do that. So the goal isn't chasing perfection. It's ultimately restoring function and getting your body back to homeostasis. So data isn't just about information, it's about transformation when you pair it with the right intention. And so real results is what this is all about. Let me share you a quick story. A 38-year-old entrepreneur came in with crushing fatigue and brain fog. His name was Gary. I won't say his last name, but every test that his doctor did came back normal. And he was in a place where he was in a high-performing job, but he was sleeping more and more during the day, and his performance started to get crushed. So he did the Dutch panel. We found flat cortisol levels, not surprising. He had poor estrogen detox, so this guy was estrogen dominant. And his GI map showed that he had dysbiosis for years, and that was because he was on antibiotics, and he was probably not on the best diet. So after 6 months, we created a personalized plan throughout those 6 months. We restored his adrenal issues, his gut. We got rid of the toxins, and he doubled his energy, actually more than doubled it, because he ended up doing after this, he ended up doing a run around the Grand Canyon because his energy was so high. His brain fog went away. He didn't have to sleep anymore. He ended up getting an award in his company for the best coach. I think he worked for Tony Robbins' organization. So he ended up becoming the best coach in Tony Robbins' organization. His heart rate variability score on his Oura Ring went up by 35%, which is really big. So if he was at, at 50, I believe, he went up to 80 or something along those lines. So that's the power of precision testing. And it's not just enough to look at your symptoms, but we want to ultimately rewrite your trajectory by getting real data. So when you finally see the right data, your story starts to change, right? So If you've been told your labs are quote unquote normal, but you still don't feel like yourself, it's time to upgrade the lens. Functional testing shows you what your biology is whispering to you long before it starts to scream. So start with just one test. Maybe it's the Dutch test, or it's the OAT test, or it's the total toxic burden test. Partner with a practitioner who can translate results into protocols for real healing. And because longevity isn't just about chasing youth, it's about understanding your body deeply. That this is really the strategy you want to deploy moving forward. All right, so the goal that I would have for you is to stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking what's missing from my data. That is a great question to ask and a good reframe. What's wrong with me versus where's the accurate data? Functional labs aren't alternatives, right? They're advanced. But they take you from managing symptoms to mastering those symptoms, because the earlier you measure what matters, the longer and better your life is going to be. So go ahead and check out the list of references that we have from the studies that we're talking about on the video. Please subscribe if you've liked this, share this with your friends. If you have any questions, go ahead, post them in the chat. My team will take a look at those questions and integrate them into future videos for me. Thank you so much, and God bless.